Welcome into NHL Tonight, first shift. Hradek here alongside Kevin Weekes. Monday, October the 14th. Happy Thanksgiving. In Canada, it's Canadian Thanksgiving, as you well know. So happy Thanksgiving to all our Canadian viewers on Sportsnet. Also, happy Columbus Day to all of you here in the U.S., as we've got 3 games on the docket this afternoon, already in the books. We got some good guests today. We got Jay Woodcroft, former coach of the Oilers. We've got Drew Bannister, current coach of the St. Louis Blues. But let's get right to the hockey that we've seen this afternoon. And we got to start with these rivalry matchup between the Panthers and Bruins. Already their second meeting of the season. Panthers with the 2-1 lead, but then it was Brandon Carlo is going to get this thing tied up. Bang!
Simple but effective wrister by Carlo. Great puck movement there by the Bees, using the wall. Up the wall, back down the wall, keep it moving. Great little buck pass in the middle. Brandon Carlo makes no mistake. Nice shot by him there.
And you know who as we look at this goal again, that puck just kicks right to Carlo, and he finds a way past Bobrovsky. And you know who really the Boston Bruins must hate is Sam Reinhart.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, here he comes again, shorthanded. He's going to end up with this goal, second of the game. He's got 19 goals in the last 29 games against the Bruins.
All starts with defensive detail, too, for your young players. And now watch him head the other way, off the rush, little backhand. Gets foiled, but stays in and around the net in the blue paint and puts home the loose change. I like the way he spins off of coverage. Watch 13 at the top of the screen. He's not making any mistake there.
Yeah, he ate up Patra in the defensive zone. Then poor Patra ends up in the net. So it's 4-2 Florida, but the Bruins are going to get a little closer here, and it's Mason Lohrei. Look at that move, Weeksy. Short side.
Low rider. I like low rider. He played in Providence for my guys that are there. Ryan Mujnell, Matty Thomas, head and assistant coach. He's got a lot of skill, big and very agile, and I like the way he takes this. He shows that confidence on the blue line. Nicely placed shot, short side.
So here are the dying seconds here. The Bruins trying to get the equalizer. They cannot do it. And the Florida Panthers, even without Matthew Tkachuk, even without Barkov, without their 2 really best offensive players, they go into Boston and just do it again. So nice job for the Florida Panthers. You can see it right there. Barkov out a couple of weeks, week to week with a lower body injury. Matthew Tkachuk out a week due to illness. I'll be headed over to Finland to see the Panthers and Stars in a couple of weeks over there. So hopefully those guys will be back in the lineup. But good win for Florida.
Really good win. And they've got a great rivalry, these 2 teams, just based on facing off in the Stanley Cup playoffs the last 2 years. No love lost between them. Certainly a lot of respect between the 2 clubs. But the Florida Panthers play a style of game that brings you into the alley. They bring you into the trenches. They know how to play that game. They pride themselves on doing that. That was a big-time win for them up in Beantown there.
So both teams have split their first 4 games, both 2-2. Over in the Rock, about a 20-minute drive from here, the Devils and Utah Hockey Club, and our guy, Seamus Casey, strikes again, Weeksy. He's got the first shift bump there.
You got that right. He started to play. He engineers it. See him there?
Yep.
He strips the puck, makes himself available as an offensive weapon, and then comes down. He scored 3 goals so far this year, all 3 of them on wristers. And he's got the confidence to beat NHL goalies. University of Michigan Wolverine, nice play by him there.
And there he is again now with the puck, holding things in here, trying to set things up to the net. And there he is, Stefan Noesen. Bangs it home, and it's 2-0 Devils.
All engineered once again by Casey, but great job by Big Tex, the Texas native Noesen, in his second stint. Look at the keep. Look at the agility. You young players, you watching that?
Yep.
You see the agility. Great confidence on his edges, and Noesen out net front does a nice job going skate to stick in John Madden's number 11.
So we get to the 3rd period. Devils on the power play, and we're going to look for Nico Hischier. It's going to end up with this biscuit and eventually put it past Vejmelka and give the Devils the 3-0 lead.
This is a clinical power play. I think the puck movement here is exceptional. Great job by Dougie Hamilton, selling shot, up high, Jesper Bratt, the Brat man, then down low, back into the bumper position. I mean, that's really tech. Look at it here from this angle. Vejmelka has to change position in the net for Utah about 3 or 4 times. That's the way you attack. Big win. How about Jake Allen, Each?
Nice job by Jake Allen getting the W, 20 saves. Looked good over in Prague against the Sabres, gets his 2nd win of the season. And how about Seamus Casey? Because he's just 20 years old. The only reason he's here is because of injuries right now to Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce. But it's going to be hard to send this guy down. He's got 3 goals. He had a goal and an assist today. He looks terrific.
Let's bring the fans in.
All right, bring him in.
You remember we were in Prague with the Global Series? Remember we were in Prague?
Yes.
And remember Tommy Fitzgerald came over and talked to us. Devil's Jim, my former teammate,
well.
came over and said he played his way on this team.
Yeah.
He's played his way on the team. Yes, we have the injury to Luke Hughes, who's stud young defenseman, and Pesci, who they brought in, who's going to be a very stabilizing force. All that to say, Seamus Casey, for me, has made this team. Every game, and he's playing as offside, as we noted over there in Prague. As a young D, and he told you in the bowels of the arena. He's like, I'm comfortable there.
I love the way he shoots the puck, too. He is tough to figure out. He's got a lot of deception in his game.
He does.
And then, of course, the last game of the day, it was nice. Thanksgiving, we needed a football game.
Yeah,
we got one.
We got one.
Ottawa, 7-7 in overtime. And guess what? The Ottawa Senators, who had been down early in this game, they're going to find a way to win it. There you see Stützle goes across, attack the net. Norris going over there.
Nice interchange.
Another interchange, and there he comes off the bench. Josh Norris puts it low. That's a tough day for a goalie, Weeks. See, Darcy Kemper, he was in there for all 8.
The worst.
But a huge win for the Senators.
Yeah, those are the worst when you lose. Exactly. Those are the worst when you lose them. When you win them, it's okay. But look at Stützle. Stützle does it. This 3-on-3 is, again, clinical. Look at the interchange there. And just those rotations. You want to know something, Eads? You mentioned something earlier in the show. And the fans up in the Ottawa area are going to go home happy with this one. Why? They get the victory on home ice, and there are a ton of goals to boot. But remember, you just mentioned earlier in the show about the amount of work the Devils used to do 3-on-3 in the D zone, the drills.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why. Because ultimately, you've got to be able to defend. And in instances like that, you can always trip up the defending team when you're in motion.
Yeah.
And the Senators did an impeccable job of motion there, which generated that opportunity.
It looked like Janot and Fiala got crossed up there, and it looked like Norris maybe came off the bench, too. So a lot of times you lose a player coming off the bench. But really not. Here it is again, Weeks, just so people could take a look at it one more time.
That's right, and don't chase. Something the great Larry Robinson used to tell us in Jersey. Don't chase. Stay in your spot. Don't chase, because if you don't call switch, now if you call switch and your defensive teammate knows, okay, I'm going there, you're going here, but otherwise stay in your lane, because what happens is Ottawa ultimately ends up exploiting that confusion. Motion creates confusion.
There you go. Senators get their second win of the season. They're 2-1. As for the Kings on the road, 1-0-2. Not awful. Not awful. You don't want to give up 8 goals, though.
No.
So not great in that way, but they do get a point out of it. When we come back, got a busy show. We got some great guests for you today, and coming up next, the head coach of the St. Louis Blues, Drew Bannister, joining us. Blues have got 2 wins in their first 3 games. We'll talk to Drew about his path to the NHL and what's going on in St. Louis. How about the Blues?
Yo.
Won 2 of the first 3 on the road. The only loss was in Vegas, and that was the second of a back-to-back. Tough spot, but they've found the way to win the 2 games. They rallied in both to get victories, so it's a good start. And with that, we bring in their head coach, Drew Bannister. And Drew, I want to start with a little something personal. I got Kevin Weekes here. Yeah. You played against him, I guess, in junior. Now, just for the viewers out here, first of all, Memorial Cup champion you were at Sault Ste. Marie, so congratulations. You were part of Team Canada World Junior Champions in '94. Congratulations, gold medal. Those are some pretty high honors, especially as a young person. But more importantly, you got to play against Kevin Weekes in the OHL. What was that like?
Well, I would imagine he was having nightmares last night of coming on and seeing that red and white there in that old Owen Sound rink. Yeah, it was. No, you know what? It was good. Like, you know what? The rivalry between Owen Sound and the Sioux is really. We seem to always match up, and it's weird. Like, even when I went back and I coached the Sioux, it was like, geez, we had to go down to Owen Sound again and play in that rink. It was like it seemed to be like every first round we matched up, and you know, whether it was, Jamie Storr was there at the time too, and it was Kevin, probably the best tandem in the Ontario Hockey League at that time. But always a really good rivalry. Tough, real tough place to play. Real tough place to play. Still is. It's a tough place to play on some.
As was the Sioux too, and you guys were always stacked. You guys had a lot of yourselves that went on to play in the show as well.
Yeah. I think we had so my year that I was drafted in the junior, I think we had going into that NHL draft year with our group, we had nine or 11 guys that were drafted in the NHL that year. Obviously, they did a heck of a job. Whether it was Sherry Baston at the time was the general manager. So they, certainly they had a couple of real good years of draft, which really kind of led into the success we had in the Sioux for 4 years. Like we obviously won the 1 year, but it took us 3 years to get to that point. The first year we lost in Quebec City, didn't have a great tournament. Second year we lost in the finals against Kamloops in Seattle. And then won the rights to the Memorial Cup, which we held in the Sioux, and then we ended up beating Peterborough in the Sioux. And then the following year, which was our last year, I think we lost in the finals of our conference to, I think it was Detroit, who went on to the Memorial Cup that year.
Hey, Drew, I got one more for you about your kind of coming, into the NHL. I mean, you had that great run in junior, and then you get drafted in the first ever draft by the Tampa Bay Lightning. You were a second-round pick, 26th overall, so a little different at that time. Weren't as many teams as there are today. They took Roman Hamrlik with the first pick, and they took Brent Gretzky. People might know that name with the third pick. But what do you remember about being drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning, who just didn't even had not even played a game when you were drafted?
Well, it's funny you ask about that, but at the time it was Phil and Tony Esposito were the GMs and assistant GMs. And Angelo Bambaco was somebody in the Sioux who was one of their scouts, again, longtime friend of the Espositos, and seemed to always be around the rink, always asking me questions. Never met with Tampa leading up to the draft, but I guess they did a lot of inside work coherently, I guess, a little bit, just to kind of pick my brain about who I'd been talking to. Obviously, they got to see me a lot, being with them being there in the Sioux and catching me on the road. But, Roman, myself, there was a couple other Sioux guys. I think Aaron Gavey was drafted.
Yeah, Gaves
at
was
that
there.
time.
He was fourth.
Tommy McDonald was a little bit later. Jeff Toms was drafted to New Jersey, but they flipped him in a trade to get him. So I think there was 4 or 5 of us that year that were drafted to Tampa.
Plus Kluch ended up coming over, and Kluch and I played together in Tampa as well. Dan Kluche was a really good goalie, good partner, went on to have a very good NHL career as well. So here's something that's interesting. We just talked, same thing. You and I played against each other since we were kids, really. And it's interesting, again, how everybody has their own path in the game. And at what point for you did it start clicking like, hey, I really would like to become an NHL head coach, or I really aspire to become a head coach? What time in your career did that start to take hold for you?
To be honest with you, Kevin, it was probably in the latter parts of my career, probably, in my 15th year, I think, when I was pro. I really started, I think my last year would have been in North America. It was in 2010 in Binghamton. And I didn't have a contract going into the summer, early into the fall. At that time and before that, I was doing a lot of stuff in Northern Ontario and Sudbury, where I grew up, with the minor hockey associations, U17 or U15 at the time, the program was. So it was a lot of volunteer work that I did. And then I did, they had level 1 going on in the spring or in the fall, that I took. I finally got a job over in the UK, which ended up being a player coach job with Sylvain Cloutier, Danny's brother. Went over and really enjoyed my time over there. Came back in the summertime. I wanted to get my high performance 1 through Hockey Canada, so I went through that process. Started doing that. Went back to the UK. I took over the team in Braehead, Scotland, as player coach. Finished my high performance 2. Came back that next summer with all intentions of going back and playing and coaching. Started my high performance 2. Put a couple feelers out to junior teams. Didn't really get quite honestly, a lot of feedback for callbacks or emails until I finally got a call from Dale DeGray in Owen Sound. And him and Greg Ireland wanted to meet me. So I drove down to CGI and Dale. We had coffee in Barrie. Had a great meeting, and quite honestly, like 2 days later, they offered me the assistant coach in Owen Sound, and I retired from playing and got into coaching and spent 3 years in Owen Sound. Just loved my time there. Loved the ownership. Really enjoyed working for Dale and GI. Learned a lot. And really started to kind of involve myself in Hockey Canada. My last year in Owen Sound, I took over the U15 team that went to the Canada Winter Games out in Prince George, and we won a gold medal out there. And then interviewed for the Sioux job right before the draft, and got a call, shortly after from Kyle Raftis to come down to the Sioux. I was at my cottage on the Manitoulin Island, so I drove up there, sat down with Kyle and the rest of the group there. The ownership group which was pretty much still intact from when I played, so there was a lot of familiar faces. Met with them for about an hour, and walked out and went back over to the Gardens and sat down with Kyle and was offered the job. And that was my first opportunity to go back as a head coach to where I was drafted in junior. So it was an exciting time for me and my family, and that's where it kind of started off, and spent 3 great years in the Sioux with some real good hockey teams and developed some real good players that are on playing in the NHL, and then have the opportunity to come to St. Louis, and work with their American Hockey League team, which was in Springfield for the first 2 years before COVID had hit. And then we went to, San Antonio, and then we went to Springfield.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you about your team this year, because I'm bullish. Kevin and I are both bullish on the Blues. I had to fight with Dan Rosen earlier in the week or last week, because I like your team this year. I think you guys have a chance to really make a step forward. I want to ask you, you're a former defenseman. You get Philip Broberg. I won't, Kevin, I'm not going to speak for you here, but I was really impressed with Broberg in that final series. We got to do the games together. I thought he was a real good player. Doug Armstrong comes in, offer sheet, you guys get him. What are your impressions of young Philip Broberg? Because I think he's got a chance to take off.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was, from my vantage point, I didn't get a ton of time to watch him when he was in the American League East and himself being in the West. But obviously, the playoffs that he had when he came in under the circumstances was really impressed. I thought he played outstanding. For us, it was just exciting to get somebody in with that kind of size, that kind of skating ability. And then once you get to know the player a little bit more, just his habits, details in his game, his physicality, the way he can skate and move pucks, and it really, like what we've been seeing from day one in training camp is someone that we're really excited about. And he's played some real good hockey for us here through camp and through the first 3 games.
Well, listen, the Hall of Famer, the great Paul Coffey, told EJ and I during Stanley Cup Final how impressed he was with Broberg. And that'll tell you something. So you're just echoing, similar kind of thoughts. I want to ask you this, though, while we have you on. This is really important because there's a lot of people, a lot of girls and boys that play the game. I know your wife coaches, and you played and coached and the whole thing, and you're actively coaching now. But for the young players that are playing the game, from an NHL head coach, what are some of the traits that you look at, having gone through it yourself and now being a coach? What are some of those traits you look at when you're watching tape or when you're at a game that you want to see from young players that aspire to play at a higher level?
Well, positivity, body language, I think, like just the way they carry themselves on the ice, the positivity that they bring towards their bench, their teammates. That's something that I really look for. It goes unnoticed at times, but it's also something, if you have bad body language, it's something that the opposition can really feed off. It's something that in young players, coming up, probably don't have recognition of when things are not going their way or their teammates' way, to give them a pat on the back, to help them out. And it's just being a good teammate. It's very subtle. But it can go a long way in really getting your team to buy in and become a team, and just that body language and that care, that positivity that you bring to the rink and on the ice and on the bench and in practice is so important to really becoming a team.
Boy, I love hearing
Isn't that great?
I love hearing it because, that's, I hope that coaches, young children, teenagers that are watching, listen to that and really hear it, because it is so So important. Drew, thanks for the time today, and good luck to your Blues. Like I said, we're rooting for you. You're 2-1.
Yeah.
You start the homestand. You got the Wild coming in. Good luck during the season. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you again at some point.
Great. Thanks, EJ. Kevin, take care, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
All
Benny.
right,
Thank
Drew
you.
Bannister, the head coach of the St. Louis Blues. We got 3 games on the docket this evening, including Rangers and Wings. That'll be right here on the NHL Network. We'll talk about the Monday schedule next on First Shift. Three games on the Monday evening schedule on this Canadian Thanksgiving / Columbus Day. And you can see here, Rangers and Red Wings at the Garden. That's right here on the NHL Network, 7 p.m. start. You got the Penguins and Canadiens in Montreal. And then out in Denver, it's the Avalanche and the Islanders, each team looking to get their first win. And you can see this note from the Detroit Red Wings. And Billy Husso cleared waivers, and he's assigned to Grand Rapids, and they've recalled Austin Watson to Detroit, who brings a little physicality to the mix for the Wings. I think they probably could use a little of that within their group.
Agreed.
But a little homecoming tonight at the Garden for the Wings. They have 6 players on their roster that were former New York Rangers. And, you know, when you come into the Garden, take me through that, Weeks, because you lived it. Coming into Madison Square Garden is always big, even if you had never played there before.
Coming into Madison Square Garden is huge, and there should be a lot of money on the board internally from the boys.
A lot.
A lot of cake on the board for all of those guys. Certainly with them having worn the blue shirt, some of them for shorter tenures, but of all of them, Cam Talbot was there the longest, and Cam coming off of a big performance with a shutout over Nashville. But when you come into Madison Square Garden, I can tell you as a young player, I remember coming into the Garden, I was absolutely jazzed. Just coming to New York, let alone to play the Rangers in the world's most famous arena, I was absolutely jazzed. I loved it. I loved it as a visiting player. I enjoyed it during my time at the Rangers as well. But there should be no lack of energy, ever, when you play and perform at the world's most famous arena.
Let me ask you about this decision to put Husso on waivers. He was not claimed. He's making a little more money than maybe some others, and so perhaps that's why he doesn't get claimed. But what did you make of that?
Well, it's big news because there's high expectations.
Yeah, they got him from St. Louis a couple of years ago.
That's right.
Played well, but then he's been injured, which has been part of his career, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the reason Jordan Binnington got his opportunity in St. Louis.
For sure.
Husso was injured at that time. Binnington stepped in, and the rest is history. But it seems like the Red Wings are still trying to figure out the goaltending. They brought in Talbot, who got off to a good start, but Husso being sent down, boy, that's a statement.
Well, remember, they went through 3 last year.
That's right.
And we did a bunch of their games last year. I did a bunch of them in person last year. We had several of them here on the network.
James Reimer.
Reimer was there.
Who's
Alex
still there.
Lyon. And Lyon came in as the 3 each last year. Remember, so Lyon came in as the 3rd goalie last year. And once they went over to Europe, I remember saying to some people in the organization, I think Lyon might actually be your 1. And he was great for them.
Turned out that he pretty much was.
Right? He was excellent for them. Right coming down to the stretch, I thought he was exceptional. Of course, they kind of lost their way as a team down the stretch and some injuries. But the way I see it now, Cam Talbot will be the guy in tandem with Lyon. And I think if those guys play the way they can, Talbot coming off of a brilliant shutout. Brilliant against Nashville in that 2-0 win. So for Billy Husso, here's the main thing. You go down to GR, the Grand Rapids. Van Andel Arena is a very good rink. I know that from my time playing in the minors. Go there with the right attitude. Practice hard. Take care of the boys. Get your game in order. Get your health in order. And this could be a springboard to another opportunity. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom each. It's disappointing. But if he handles this the right way, this could be a springboard for him either in Detroit or elsewhere going forward.
All right, and the Rangers trying to get back on track after a 6-5 loss to the always dangerous Utah Hockey Club. And that was a wild one at the Garden on Saturday night.
Was indeed.
Let's talk a little bit about the Penguins and the Canadiens. And the Montreal Canadiens, Cole Caulfield, he's off to a fast start. 4 goals already. The Canadiens have got off to a pretty good start as well, winning 2 of their first 3. What do you like from Montreal so far?
I like what I saw from them last year, and I'm seeing more of it this year. They're pesky, they're frisky, they're very competitive, even though they're young and maybe a little bit inexperienced as a group. But my guy Marty has them playing fun, up-tempo, loose, but accountable. They're enjoying playing in the NHL, but it's a learning process. It's almost like playing in the NHL and having hockey school at the same time. And Marty and the staff have done a fantastic job. Happy for him, happy for them. They are going to, as they did last year each, they're going to bloody some teams' noses this year. Not necessarily by the physicality by Jack-Eye, but they're going to beat some very good teams this year. I like where they're trending right now.
And how about Lane Hudson? 4 assists already.
So good. So skilled.
He even had Brady Tkachuk doing like kind
Yeah, he did.
like
He was kinda mocking him.
he's behind the net with the puck, and I don't know if you saw the video out there. Brady Tkachuk was kind of like flinging his head back and forth and trying to mimic him. Hey, listen, you can mimic all you want.
Yeah.
Lane Hutson's going to be in this league for a long time. He's a really good player, 4 assists already. Fun to watch.
Fun to watch. Another American-born player, another young, bright American-born player, super skilled, super talented. I really like Lane Hutson's game in general. But I would say this. I think overall with the Montreal Canadiens, and he played college hockey, I should say, but the biggest thing for me with the Montreal Canadiens now is they have the skill, they have the speed, they have the talent, but they're learning on the job of how to execute that at the NHL level. Right? So it's not just junior moves or college moves per se, but he's not stifling their creativity, but he's also holding them to task a little bit on the little details of the game. So it's been a fun brand. And look out when they get Laine back, too.
That's right. Hopefully,
look out when they get Laine
back in a couple of months.
Yeah.
For the Pittsburgh Penguins, goaltending so far, it's been an up-and-down story here. They got blown out by the Rangers. They end up winning their second game, lose their third game, and here they are. You can see the goaltenders. I mean, Jari is supposed to be their guy.
Yeah.
Nedeljkovic, you can see there, who took the job down the stretch last year.
He was great down the stretch.
He is on the IR right now with a lower body injury, and Blomqvist comes in, and he was the one who got the victory. But what do you make of the goaltending? They're going to need good goaltending in Pittsburgh. I mean, they're not going to be able to get by with just okay. It's not 2016 anymore. They're going to need really good goaltending to compete and maybe to make the playoffs.
I agree. And Jari's been an all-star, multi-time all-star, handles the puck well. I like that he's not too robotic. He's got some good athleticism. I've been a fan of his for a long time. I'd like to see him lock in his A game. And then Blomqvist can, along the way, he can contribute. Welcome to the National, because he had his first NHL win. So congrats to him. But Nedeljkovic on the shelf with the injury. But all things being equal, you're right. If they want to play that game and play to their strengths, which is largely offense, then they're going to need to be able to get the stops. Depend on getting the stops when they need them.
Yeah, and, speaking of goaltending, the last game on the list tonight, Colorado and the Islanders. Boy, the Avalanche goaltending situation, who knows where that's going moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on that one tonight out in Denver. When we come back, we got a big show today. We got a lot of guests, which I like. We got Jay Woodcroft, former coach of the Edmonton Oilers. We spent some time with him in Prague as he was involved with a coaching clinic for the National Hockey League. Jay Woodcroft joins us next. Here's a look at the coaching record of Jay Woodcroft during his time with the Edmonton Oilers. Very successful. You can see there, .643 win percentage. Also took the Oilers to the conference final. Ended up on the short end against the Avalanche. Went on to win the Cup that year. But we saw Jay over in Prague, Kevin Weekes and I, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Jay was over there doing coaches clinics for the NHL along with Todd McClellan. Let's start there. What is the goal of doing these coaches clinics? What was it like for you being involved with something like that?
Well, first of all, fellas, thanks for having me on the show today. I appreciate it. And, heading over to Prague, it's a place I'm familiar with. I was just there for the World Championships and had been there in 2015 with Team Canada at the World Championships as well. It's a great place, a hockey-mad country. And I was approached by the NHL Coaches Association, to try and give something back to some of the coaches in the Czech Republic. And I'll tell you what, it was a very well-attended event. And their passion for the game was on display, and really enjoyed speaking on the topics that I was able to speak on.
Woody, don't be bashful now. You said there, when we were over there, you said there are north of 300-something coaches for the age. We saw them in the stands, did we not?
They took up almost the whole section of the stands watching practice.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about it.
It was fantastic. First of all, the NHL treated both Todd and I first class, and how, we traveled, how we were taken care of once we got to Prague, and then to see how well organized and professional the coaches clinic was, it was really exciting to be there during that time, just be around passionate people. And I told the group when I spoke to them how humbled and privileged I felt in, speaking to a group of 350 like-minded people that just wanted to get better. And I thought our local host did a great job extending hospitality and including their national teams and all that kind of good stuff. And at the end of the day, it was a group of people that came together to try and be the best that they can be. And I was fortunate to have been asked.
Jay, you know, we talked to you over in Prague about like the things you've been doing to, as you're kind of in this limbo period as you're hoping for another opportunity to be a head coach in the National Hockey League. I'm sure that day is going to come. You had a terrific, short but really good run with the Edmonton Oilers there, where you went to a Western Conference final. What have you been doing? I think you had spent some time with the Flyers, brief bit of time there. You were part of the IIHF World Championship with Team Canada. Like, what are the things you're doing to kind of, maybe reflect and to get better as you move forward in your own career?
Well, I like the way you said it, EJ. Like, for me, using this time as wisely as I can was really important to me. It's something where, I take pride in trying to grow every single day. And so you spend a lot of time reflecting on your experiences. I had 9 very good years in the Edmonton organization. I wore every hat that I was asked to wear. And for me, had success both in the American League at the NHL level. During this break, I think, you try and learn from different people. I've had numerous great conversations with mentors around the NHL. I've had the opportunity, like you said, John Tortorella is just a fantastic human being. We were talking in the summertime. He extended an invitation to go to Philadelphia to watch some of his training camp. And I'm sure you guys know his training camps are legendary. And so for me, while I take this time to prepare for my next opportunity, I wanted to see what that was all about. I sat in the stands. I was able to, see firsthand, how John ran his training camp. I was really impressed. And, I know I'll take some things from those few days with me going forward when I run my next training camp. But I think the big thing, EJ, is just committing to being the best that you can be, committing to growing. And like I said, just preparing myself for that next opportunity, wherever, whenever that happens.
Woody, we played against each other and known each other since we were about 8 or 9 years old, growing up in Toronto. Yeah. And it's interesting how everybody has their own path in the game. There's so few of us that have gone on to make the league. And if I'm not mistaken, top of mind, you might be the only one that's a head coach in the National Hockey League from our era. Like, at what point did you get the bug to where you wanted to start coaching to ultimately get to where you are now?
I come from a proud hockey family, so my parents did a great job of raising us. And then for me, I was part of that Metro Toronto system. It was back then, it was called the MTHL, and I was a proud Don Mills Flyer. I came up through that organization. And, as I got older, I started to work at hockey schools. There's a real proud hockey school with a long history in Toronto called the Seneca College Hockey School.
Remember it well.
And lots of players came through there, lots of future coaches. My boss at the time was Steve Spott, who's now an assistant coach with the Dallas Stars. And, I think as I went through it, I knew that, playing in the league would have been hard pressed. I played as long as I could, as high as I could, but I wanted to find a way to be around the best people. And, fortunately, I was able to start my coaching career in Detroit with what I call Red Wings University. It was just a fantastic place for me to learn as a young coach. There was 4 coaches in that coaching room. All 4 went on to become head coaches in the NHL. We had the resources of a Ken Holland and Jim Nill, Steve Yzerman when he went into management, but also, Scotty Bowman was on staff, and anytime you had the chance to talk to him and pick his brain, I was like a kid in a candy store, and I just tried to learn and get better. And from that opportunity led to a little bit more responsibility in San Jose, tried to grow that opportunity into the next one, while at the same time not skipping any steps along the way, taking pride in the process and trying to be great where my feet were. And at the end of the day, I wanted to be ready when my name was called and I got tapped on the shoulder to be a head coach. And before I took over the reins in Edmonton, it was 17 years of hard work to prepare myself. And I can tell you, I felt ready.
Yeah, you know, it's funny,
Right.
when we get ready to talk to anybody, you go back and you go through and you look, and you really did have a really good path from time in Detroit. You started, I think, as a video coach there, an assistant coach. You went with Todd McClellan to San Jose, and then to Edmonton. You were a head coach in the minors. So you did all these different jobs, and so obviously you have earned the opportunity that you got in Edmonton, and hopefully you'll get in the future. I just had one other quick question for you is, again, doing the work, I saw that you played your 4 years at Alabama Huntsville in NCAA, which is kind of like, for those of us here in the U.S., that's always been kind of, you know, you hear about it, and like I know Cam Talbot went there, and he just had a nice game the other night for the Wings against Nashville. But what was that like for you playing at, you know, down in Alabama? You're a Toronto kid, you go down there to play NCAA hockey probably in the late 90s.
Right. You know, I had my eyes open, that's for sure. But yeah, I think that's what you go to school for and university for. You go there to grow, not only on the ice, which I did. I had numerous great teammates that I keep in touch with. I'll tell you a funny thing. In the house that, you know, my roommates and I had in my junior and senior year, 3 of us are involved in the NHL. One of them, Steve Briere, he's the goalie coach in Seattle with the Kraken. And then Dwayne Blais went on to becoming a skills coach with the Detroit Red Wings. And so for 3 of us in that house to, you know, come out of what you would call a non-traditional hockey school to earn a living in the National Hockey League is a real privilege. But, you know, I had a great education, had great teammates. They pride themselves on calling themselves the hockey capital of the South. You mentioned Cam Talbot, who I got to be around in Edmonton as well. But, you know, they started to produce some players down there. Jared Ross played for Philadelphia. Nick Dowd is still playing in the league with Washington. And those are born and raised Huntsville, Alabama kids. Just shows you the scope of our game and how players are coming out of non-traditional markets.
Woody, listen, you've been on the radar. You're a finalist for two coaching opportunities this past summer. Of course, there'll be many more going forward. I know the impact, echoing what Eej said and talking to guys in Edmonton, that you had on that franchise, from the young guys, from Bouchard to up to Connor and Leon and among others, Mike in the net as well, Stu Skinner. What would you say your signature trait is as a head coach? For me, knowing you, I'd say it's communicator, but what would you say?
Yeah, well, I would appreciate that handle. I like that handle. I would use common sense communication skills and the ability to get some points across while holding people accountable and doing so. You know, I've had some great teachers along the way. And, you know, everyone talks about just mentors in terms of other coaches you've been around and worked with. But I think you learn a lot from players, and, you know, seeing some of the great players in Detroit, the Hall of Famers that passed the torch on to the next generation, that was a real treat for me. And then to go to San Jose and be around the quality of people like Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, and Pavelski and Dan Boyle, these types of guys. And then to see the Connors and Leons of the world, Darnell Nurses of the world come up as 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, you really see things come full circle. I always find it to be a treat when you see some of these younger players move into getting engaged and then getting married and then starting families of their own. I know it makes me feel a little older, but it also makes me proud to see how how young people are growing, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well.
Well, Jay, thanks for taking the time today on Canadian Thanksgiving. I know you're up in Western Canada. And, you know, hopefully, we'd love to have you back on. I got a million questions for you, but I got a feeling you're going to be coaching somewhere soon. So either way, we'll talk to you down the road, and thanks again for the time today.
Fellas, happy Canadian Thanksgiving, and just wanted to let everyone know how much I appreciate you too, and thanks for having me on the show today. And for sure, we'll set another date sometime soon.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, Woody.
Jay Woodcroft.
Thanks, guys.
He's going to be coaching somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Just a matter of time
Especially
now.
when you get frustration around the league with teams not how you see Nathan McKinnon not happy there with the Avs start. Other teams have had some struggles. There's been a little frustration in the air. We'll discuss that next on First Shift. Oh, boy. it has not been a great start for the Colorado Avalanche, and particularly their goaltending and defensive play, as they are allowing goals in bunches, and they are off to an 0-2 start. So much so that at the end of Saturday's game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, Nathan MacKinnon not happy. He's going to take a 10-minute misconduct. See you later. You know, I used to get mad, too, when I saw Steve Mears in the building because he was there with the Blue Jackets. So sometimes he can just rub you the wrong way. I don't think it had anything to do with that. But at any rate, boy, the Avalanche are a team that we sit there at the start of the season. We say we pencil them in. They're going to be in the playoffs. Maybe they're going to win the President's Trophy. And, you know, sometimes we forget. Things change. Like Landeskog hasn't been there for a couple of years.
Right.
They've had other players that have come and gone in that time, and they're missing players right now, too. Nichushkin, we don't even know if he comes back, if they're going to take him back. As I mentioned, Landeskog would love to be back playing, but...
No Bo Byram either.
But yeah, he traded for
Buffalo,
kids at Casey Middlestat. So, I mean, this is a different team, and they're not getting the goaltending right now through the first couple of games. I mean, remember last year in the playoffs, Georgiev, he's been up and down. And in the playoffs last year, he struggled. And then he found his way again. And the start of this year, I mean, 2 games, 2 starts, .680 save percentage. Weeksy! Well, when you hear someone has a .680 save percentage as a former goalie, do you get a shiver?
I do.
Do you get a little nervous?
I do. Listen, and they've got one of the best goalie coaches in the league, and UC Parkala, Finnish goaltender coach that helped them win the Stanley Cup with Darcy Kemper and at the time. But my big thing with them right now, and specifically with Georgiev, and I got to see Georgiev a lot at the Garden when he was with the Rangers.
No question.
A lot.
Yeah.
And on ice level last year at All-Star Weekend in Toronto when he won goalie of All-Star Skills Competition, if you remember. My thing for Georgiev, when he's on his A game, he can go up against any goalie in the league. And he needs to believe now, because he has a sample size of being a true number one. He needs to believe that he's a number one on a game-to-game basis, right? And that's what a big part of it, Ege, is mental. It's not about his skill set. It's not about his ability or his talent or anything technical. A lot of it is mental. And a lot of the guys, listen, I played over 50 games 4 or 5 times in the NHL in my career, a season. And a lot of that's just the mentality, let alone then, okay, you're going up against Marty, who plays all the time, Marty Turco, who plays all the time, Patty Waugh, all these guys. Yeah. You've got to put that on yourself to say, hey, I'm going to be the man each and every game, each and every practice. And it's in there. It just hasn't been there yet. And then, in addition to that, to your point about the defensive stuff, hey, we can skate with it. We can make plays with anybody, but we can't be fishing it out of our net. Yeah. Those guys have to commit to playing that 200-foot game on the defensive side. Georgiev needs to elevate his game. And when they do that, then they look like the Avalanche.
What do you make of Nathan MacKinnon, flipping out there at the end of the game? I mean, guys get frustrated. I get it.
Sure. My big challenge is this right now. I've been a Nate guy and always are going to be a Nate guy. But the one thing is I like that Nate can run hot because that's part of what makes him great. But at the same time, he needs to show a little bit of that composure because when things are going south, when your best player is able to kind of be steady, everybody else can kind of fall in line, especially without Landeskog, their captain right now, who we talked about. Yeah. So you need Nate to just stay on the discipline, stay on the chill. You don't want to be giving the other team or the rest of the league any thoughts of, hey, we can get under Nate's skin. Yeah. He's too good of a player. He's a highlight player, but he needs to maintain his composure right now, especially as they're going through a tough stretch. Because sometimes if your best player becomes unraveled, then it just kind of makes everybody in the dressing room a little bit uncertain. Then guys aren't feeling the same. They don't feel as confident. Put the shoulders back, go out there, skate the way you skate, make your plays, and just stay calm.
Yeah, keep everybody
chill.
Early in the season.
Early in the season.
Hey, we saw the Buffalo Sabres, right? We were in Prague. We got to watch their 2 games. We were not overly impressed. And we wanted to see a little more bite, a little more jam maybe from Buffalo Sabres. Well, today in practice, there was a little jam because Rasmus Dahlin decided he was going to have kind of an open ice hip check on Peyton Krebs, and who clearly wasn't too happy about it, and they got to scrapping as it went. And here's a tweet from Lance Lysowski of Lindy Ruff. Boys will be boys. Raz got bumped the drill before and then even up the score. We wouldn't read too much into that. We want competitive practices. You know what? As long as nobody's hurt here, and it was, it was nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, a hip check. You don't even see them in the game.
That's a Rob Blake.
In practice,
that's a Rob Blake special.
Right? But I'm glad to see it for the Buffalo Sabres. Aren't you tired of losing in Buffalo? And tired of the garbage? So, like, Rasmus Dahlin is a young captain. He's looking to kind of find his way. He got a little ticked off. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for the Buffalo Sabres to get a little heated, because they need to be heated every shift of every game through the entire season this year if they're going to find their way back into the playoffs for the first time since, I was a kid.
Yeah, see? That
was a long time ago, Weeksy.
Hey, this is the difference between what we were just talking about with Colorado versus Buffalo.
Colorado overheated.
They overheated
Buffalo
and they won.
Underheated.
That's right. and the thing is, I've had so many buddies that live and play and work for the Sabres over the years. Amazing fans. I'm from Toronto. It's an hour and a half up the highway. It's an outstanding sports market. We love the Sabres fans. Yeah. Love them. Yeah. Love them. But 13 years now, hey, this is starting to bubble over. 13 years, no playoffs. Yeah. And I had a chance to speak to Rasmus Dahlin at Player Media Tour. And I love the competitiveness that he showed. Yeah. I love the little jam that he has. If you don't really know him, he has that side to him.
Oh, yeah.
And we watched their practice.
Remember Austin Matthews with him getting into it?
Absolutely. Yeah. What did we say about the practice when we're over in Prague?
To me, it lacked real purpose. There was not a real juice in that practice.
And that's why Lindy said that. And I played for Lindy. Lindy was our assistant coach for the Florida Panthers when I came in the league. That's why Lindy said that. And I'm sure that was music to Lindy's ears. Coach Ruff, when he saw that, oh, yeah, boys. Yeah. Now we're finly dialed in.
We want to win here. We want to get dialed in day after day after day after day and really compete. I used to go to those Devil practices. I mean, it was warfare with Scotty Stevens and Kenny Danico. They do those 3-on-3 drills below the dots.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I was behind the glass, and I was a little nervous. So it can be dicey.
Yep.
So we'll see how things go with the Buffalo Sabres. Is that it for us?
Is that it already?
I think we're cooked.
Wow.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
Where's JD? Didn't even pop up this time.
In Canada?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Enjoy the rest
Mom, Dad,
of the day.
all you NHL fans.
We'll be back tomorrow.